Okay. And can everybody online hear us? Thumbs up, thumbs down. We're going to make an assumption and say yes. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. This is our November Economic Alliance meeting. I'd like to start out with our coffee sponsor. Huge thank you to Cass Walker with First Southwest Community Fund. Thank you so very much for the delicious coffee. Cass, you want to tell us a little bit about First Southwest Community Fund?
Sure, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Sorry. Executive Director at First Southwest Community Fund. For those of you that don't know us, we are the nonprofit partner of First Southwest Bank. We support rural businesses and startups mainly through access to capital and resources. So we have a number of different programs that provide low interest debt, some grant programs, and then we do a number of educational programs in partnership with a lot of our organizations locally, like our SBDC here. A couple of things to highlight, and I will be talking at the next meeting and give a more kind of comprehensive view of our programs. But before the end of the year, we do have a couple of different programs that we are pushing out to support small businesses as they close up 2021. So one is our Innovate Onwards and Climber program. So those are loans up to $500,000. The interest rates are between 3.5 to 3.9%. And it's a really great program for folks that need working capital or have equipment needs before the end of the year. And then we're also in the process of launching our Fortaleza Fund here in Durango, which means resilience in Spanish. We're working with compañeros and really looking to support our immigrant-led businesses here in the Durango and La Plata region, and also in the San Luis Valley. So we've got a few more events coming up through that program before the end of the year. And the last thing I'll say is we're also participating as a partner in the Bond to Business. So we are running our construction capital fund in partnership with Region 9. So if you know any construction businesses, small or large, that need working capital to get involved with the 9R bond project, please let them know that we're here to help. So yeah, it's great to see you all this morning. It's always good to see a good turnout at 8 a.m. And yeah, I'll see you in the next meeting. Thanks.
And thanks so much for the coffee, Cass. Along those same lines, I'm going to send up a sign-up sheet. So we've got coffee sponsorships on this very first page, and then the membership page on the second one. So find your name. If there's any updates to it, please enter it. If this is your first time here, if you go to the back page, there's some blank spaces there. We can get you kind of looped in and make sure that you're in the know. Along those same lines, do we have any first timers here this morning? Okay, we got a couple. If you guys don't mind, you're welcome to kind of stand up, introduce yourself, and let everybody get to know you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lindsay Carmen. I'm here with Shaw Solar. I know John Shaw has been a few times, so I don't really tell us in these meetings, but I am excited to meet everybody.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sam Harrison. I work with Agile Space Industries, which is down on 1514 Main, the old wine shop. I work for Jeff Max, our CEO, who will be joining us.
Fantastic. Thank you both. Any other first-time attendees this morning?
April Bates with Coldwell Banker. So Heather Herb isn't here this morning, and I was invited, so I'm excited to see what you guys are about.
Super. Well, welcome. Thanks so much, first-timers. Great to see you here. Board updates from our last meeting. Obviously, we had our election map last month. So welcome, Joe Thine. Welcome, Steve Elias, to the Economic Board. They were able to join our meeting last week and start to kind of get introduced to the organization and get looped in with some items that we're working on. So welcome, welcome. Just a couple highlights from our board meeting. So we are going to have a strategic planning half-day meeting in December. Working on the dates there. It should be that first week in December. We'll kind of finalize budget stuff for 2022 and then really make sure that we've got good strategic initiatives and that we're clear going into 2022. And then we're looking at putting on a Chairman Circle reception for that group of membership in early December as well. So exciting stuff. It's been a fantastic year. I missed the last investor meeting, so it's odd. I feel like I should be talking summit because I haven't been with you all since the summit, but you guys did that last week or last month, so I don't get to do that. With that, I'll hand it over to Mike French for our update.
Good morning, everybody. Any veterans in the room? Jessica, can you stand up? Yeah, thank you for your service. Just as a reminder, Thursday is Veterans Day for you leaders. Make sure you recognize the veterans on your team. It's an incredible thing that we have here, freedom, and it doesn't come easy, as you guys know. Briefly, mark your calendars because travel will be closed both in and out September 7th through the 16th of 2022. The airport will be resurfacing 2 miles of their runway and doing much needed repairs. We'll have Tony out here in future meetings to talk as we get closer to the date, but please do mark your calendars, very important. It'll sneak up on you and you won't realize that the airport will be out of service. I'm sure that Tony and the airport will do an excellent job communicating this and making sure that everybody knows about it throughout the year. But we might as well get ahead of it. Hate to talk about this, but at the Recovery Task Force meeting yesterday afternoon, it was the big topic of conversation, and we definitely are in the midst of a COVID surge. So this slide shows you that the biggest problem right now is Colorado is the third worst state in the country. And it's not trending very well. As a matter of fact, it's trending to be the hotspot in the country. If you look at the #1 state in terms of COVID transmission and cases per 100,000, this is daily case average. Alaska is the worst, but they are getting better by the day. They're trending 2-week, 14-day trend is negative 44%, whereas Colorado 14-day trend is a positive 44%. In other words, we've increased 44% over the last 14 days. So definitely a big problem, which is ironic because when you look at vaccination rates in the entire country, Colorado is 15th. So 62% of all population is vaccinated, and it's even better when you go to 12 and up and 65 and up at 72 and 87. So it tells you that the biggest problem is probably tourism. And according to some conversation yesterday, the number that was thrown around is 80% of the cases that we're seeing are unvaccinated population. According to hospitalization numbers, they're corresponding with the increase in transmittal rates, putting tremendous amount of pressure on our healthcare system to the point where the governor has put in place some healthcare policies that Joe talked about yesterday in the task force meeting. Joe, you want to add any color to that?
Not a lot, just be aware that there's more than one pressure on the healthcare system right now. So, patients who have COVID that need hospital care is one pressure. Another pressure is there's a lot of people visiting Colorado, and people who come to visit tend to recreate and get hurt and end up needing healthcare when they're visiting Colorado. So that's an increased demand on healthcare services. And then in addition to that, we're seeing a lot of individuals who delayed care at some point over the last 20 months that have either had their condition worsen to the point where they can no longer delay their care, or when they're wanting to get care aren't as healthy. And so the demand on care is higher from that group. And it's the time of year where many of us may have, through other more routine care, reached the point where we pay our deductible. We have a health plan, and so we're looking at our financial health and saying, this is the time of year when I want to get care because it's financially a good time to do that. And so there's a number of pressures on the healthcare system right now, in addition to COVID. And it's straining the healthcare system in our state.
Thank you, Joe. La Plata County, how we're doing, we are under average of the state, but we're experiencing our own surge, as you can see from this graph. We're at the worst transmittal rate that we've been in for the year. And if you look at where we were same time last year, we're a little bit higher, but this arrow on the graph represents the first week of November in 2020, and you can see what happened after that surge. We're keeping an eye on this. This is obviously a concern because any policies would have a negative impact, economic impact, but I think it's important that our community do our best for public health reasons and protect our community. Quickly, some housing data in town. For the first time, we're seeing some really strong decrease in sales numbers due to inventory. The average price in October for Durango in town for single family homes was $693,000, but you had a decrease in sold for same time previous year of over 62%. You can see that the decrease in inventory for same time last year is over 70%. When you look at La Plata County, it gets a little bit better, but not much. New listings is down 35%, sold listings is down 30%, but the inventory is a little bit better, where we have at least a month, 1.7 supply of inventory. All of the assets for the summit are on the summit site, so just go to yeslpc.com. You can see all of the videos of the keynotes. You can download all the assets from the breakout sessions and see all the things that we had at the summit, including the survey. So if you haven't filled out the survey, go online. This link will take you to the feedback survey. Membership updates. These are renewals that we want to call out. Investor, Durango Chamber of Commerce, thank you very much. And Friends is United Way of Southwest Colorado, Southwest Land Services, Powerhouse Science Center, Fast Science Durango, and DHM Designs. So thank you. So this is our last meeting with Emily, part of the staff. I think it's important that I personally take the time to thank her. Emily has been an incredible asset for the Alliance, dating back probably almost a decade. And so Emily has been a board member. She has been a staff member. Emily was here when there was no leadership, and she stepped in and kept the Alliance afloat. I personally have a tremendous amount of gratitude for you, Emily. You made my job easy in a very, very, very difficult time. I think the last 18 months, maybe 2 years, have been probably some of the hardest times the Alliance has seen. And so I want to personally thank you. I wish you nothing but success. I know you're going to kick butt wherever you go in your career, but Emily will take the helm in Pagosa Springs, leading their economic development efforts. So with that, I'd like to recognize Emily. Thank you so much. Emily, as a small token of our appreciation, we have you given you a gift basket and a very large bottle of champagne. Emily, do you want to say a few words? If you can come up here, that way folks can hear you from that are dialed in.
I can't say thank you enough for putting your trust in me to lift up this organization when there was no leadership at the helm. And I can't say thank you enough for every time I made a phone call to someone in this room and said, could you help me with this? You responded, you showed up, you assisted, and it really does take a village to grow a community. And this organization created that village and does a fabulous job. I look forward to collaborating with this organization as we lift up the whole Southwest Colorado. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for recognizing me. And it has been my honor and my pleasure to serve this organization. Thank you.
I'm not going to repeat what Emily just whispered into my ear. Yeah, so it was a term of endearment, I'm sure. We have already hired a new director of operations who's beginning the transition with Emily. We'll make a formal announcement of that this week and properly introduce her at our next investor meeting. But Michelle Fury is with us today. Michelle, would you stand up real quick? And she will be transitioning over the next couple of weeks, and we'll start in the next couple of weeks for the Alliance. So Michelle, welcome on board, and I'm excited to work with you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, and Jameson, the click is good to go.
Again, thanks so much, Emily. It's odd when I moved here in 2012, like Emily's been the staple with the Economic Alliance for me. So she was on the board, interim director. There's always been some interaction there. So again, we wish you the absolute best. If there's anything we can do to help, always reach out. Roll into municipality updates. Sharon Craig from Ignacio. I believe she's dialed in. Sharon, we have
I am. Good morning. So a few quick things. Our land use code is finally going to public hearing after 2 years. We're hoping to pass it this year. So that's exciting. We've also acquired a crucial property that allowed us much needed access to what we lovingly refer to as the slaughterhouse property, which we hope to turn into housing. So I'm assuming we're going to be changing that name at some point. And this means we'll be looking at some more annexations in 2022 for Ignacio. Upcoming, we have DOLA's University Technical Assistance Program that will allow us access to students in architecture and landscape architecture. And they're going to engage with our community to help envision what we want Ignacio to look like in the future. We're working with our creative district, and we've had some meetings with Jen Coates that led the Art Space program in Ridgeway. And we're going to be looking at possibilities for that in Ignacio as well. And then tonight, the second DYI channel program that was filmed in Ignacio, they're having a second program, and it will be premiering tonight, and it is called Colorado A-Frame Cabins. I think that's all I have.
super. Thanks, Sharon. Good luck with the name change. Slaughterhouse property. Wow.
Yeah, I know. I know people are desperate for housing, but that may be a little far-fetched.
Sounds like a horror film. Mayor Tarkington with Bayfield.
Hi, everybody. So our sales tax is still holding and trending nicely in the right direction. And our I Bought It in Bayfield rewards program is taking shape. We have about 30 plus businesses involved just to kind of finish out the year with a bang. So if you want to come support our salons, our bars, our restaurants, our stores, you can win fun prizes for supporting us. We did adopt our budget last week, and in that budget adoption, we included a few more full-time employees. So Bayfield is booming, we're growing, and in that budget adoption, we are looking for a full-time planner due to the amount of projects coming our way, the complexity of them, the size of them. So we will be putting out that advertisement, but if you know a full-time planner wanting to relocate or work with Bayfield, we've got some big fun stuff coming up, including tons of residential annexations and business opportunities. So keep you all posted on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Tarkington. We'll move to City of Durango. Here's Mayor Kim Baxter. Morning, Kim.
Hello. So it always seems to me when we do our municipality reports that we're independent entities, and we are, but we have a regional housing alliance that's just been brought back together. And the intergovernmental agreements have gone to all of the governing bodies, and they will be coming to the City of Durango here in our next meeting. So there will be an official new entity so that we can all focus on getting housing in each of our localities, and we're going to do it together. We're not going to just be independent of each other. So I'm really excited about that. And the Regional Housing Authority Board determined that what we wanted to do was hire leadership for the RHA that had a breadth and depth of experience and capabilities beyond what we thought one person might have. So the request for qualifications that is going out, it'll be going out on the 11th. I think that's Thursday. That's not today, is it? No, okay. We'll focus on the idea of having a firm or a team that can help us do this, because there is so much that needs to be done. There's fundraising, there's creating relationships with developers, there's helping planning the projects, there's helping getting things happening. So it's really exciting to those of us who are on the board. I believe not our last meeting last week, but the month before, we toured the Slaughterhouse property. We toured the other property in Ignacio. We also toured the Bayfield property so that we all know what's going on in the county, and it's not just centric to our own community. So I'm really excited about that aspect of it. We also have a great community development department in Durango, and so they gave me some information to give you. That makes me so happy because they have my back. We talked about bump outs briefly last time about its success, and they're having enhanced safety and accessibility standards. So for 2022, we'll be really working on that. But even more interesting for me personally is that we're looking at a renewed vision for the future of Main Avenue, which the BID, the Business Improvement District, is also working together with the city to help determine what that might look like. And that'll be a really community engaged program. So there'll be a phase one, which will start with that engagement about redesigning of the streetscape and the public spaces along Main. So what do we want Main to look like, and how do we want it to function? So both for our community members and for the businesses. And then phase two, the transportation department will take that information that's received and initiate a redesign of Main Avenue. So I don't have a timeline on this yet, but I'm hoping that we have some of that public engagement happening this winter and in the spring, so that in the summer we can actually start seeing what that might look like. Also with housing, we hired, I'm going to start with the, here we go. We have in our new budget for 2022, we have a housing innovation division. So we hired a housing innovation manager, Eva Henson, and she's starting in late November. She brings a wealth of experience in real estate, public-private partnerships, and residential development. And most recently, she worked as the housing manager for the town of Frisco. So what we want the Housing Innovation Department to do is to work with all of our developers on how do we make these projects go through the system quickly, and how do they come out in a way that best benefits our community so that we get workforce housing, we get whatever other kind of housing needs to be done above workforce housing. So more expensive things, as you saw on our chart here today. But what's really important is that like about 80 to 100% area median income people, which are policemen, firefighters, teachers, city staff, everybody you can think of, managers of your own businesses, so that they have housing. And that's, but we're focusing, the Housing Innovation Group will probably, and I'm going to say this and then I'm going to contradict myself, be focused mostly on what's going on within the city limits. So they go to sleep at night dreaming about how do we get housing in the city, because we want people to be able to ride their bikes and walk. And then when they wake up in the morning, how do they make it actually happen? But now I'm going to contradict myself, because we have a couple of pretty significant projects coming down toward us that would be outside of current city limits that would then probably end up being annexed. And one of them is down in La Posta Road. So there's a La Posta partnership, which consists of the City of Durango, La Plata County, the Economic Development Alliance, the URA, which is our Urban Renewal Authority, and property owners down in La Posta with the help of SEH Planning and Engineering. And we're looking at the next steps to assess the feasibility of annexing, listen to this, 320 acres into Durango to facilitate housing development. That can go a long way towards helping us with the challenges that we're facing. So I'm so excited that this group of people is getting together and doing it. They're interested in finding ways to contribute to the design and construction of the mainline infrastructure in the area to make development more cost effective. So for example, the city of Durango has money in our budget for extending the water line down to La Posta. The county has some money in their budget for sewer related things. And then how do we create the development, and how do our municipalities help support that financially and with more efficient methods of getting through our planning processes. So I'm really excited about that. The thing that I think we also need to focus on there is transportation, because we don't want to create more traffic in town and we don't want to create more parking issues. So we'll also have to, in conjunction with developing housing, figure out how to get people effectively and efficiently in and out of town. Let's see. So there's another Urban Renewal Authority area that we're focusing on North Main, around the area of 32nd Street to 35th Street. So there's a lot of buildings up there and that could be redeveloped and be more economically viable, as well as housing in that area. So that area would be anchored by a mid-sized townhome development, which would include deed-restricted workforce housing. And what the city is doing is helping with the infrastructure, because right now there's like 4 homes on that property, and we want to bump it up to the developers would like to do 20, but the infrastructure doesn't really support that in the way that it should. So how can the city help with that infrastructure development so we can get the full 20 units, of which then we require some deed restriction and or rental or sales only to our workforce that lives here in town. So we're trying to be really creative and do as many different processes as possible. And I encourage you to let the development community know that we're collaborating and working well together so that we can make that happen. And I think that's about it. So does anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Boy, thank you for the update, Mayor Baxter. Just a tremendous amount of talk on housing, right? For those of you that know, La Posta has been on the map since I've been here. And so it sounds like we're finally really starting to make some progress with the city contributing funds, the county contributing funds, and the Economic Alliance really kind of being square in the middle of that to try and get that area developed, both from a commercial and industrial standpoint and from a workforce housing standpoint. So really exciting things. Commissioner Salka.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you. So since Mayor Baxter, quite a few updates, so I will keep it short because we are working together on a couple of those projects. So today on our agenda for our business meeting is the RHA IGA. So that will be in front of us today to make a decision on that. As well as tomorrow afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m., I will have office hours at the Pine River Library out in Bayfield. And as well as tomorrow afternoon, we have our La Posta Road Interest Group. And I want to thank Mike French and the Alliance for bringing together the county and the city to work on La Posta Road and moving that forward. So thank you very much, team. The other item too as well that's important is on November 22nd, we will have a work session about ARPA to vet some projects that have come in to move forward, and or also contact the applicant to let them know that it's not one of our visions for good use for ARPA funds. So that will be on the 22nd at 10:30. So if you would like to attend, please join us via Zoom. And that is my updates for today. Thank you all.
Super. Thank you, Commissioner Salka. We've got the pleasure this morning of having La Plata Electric CEO, Jessica Matlock, with us. So she's going to kind of give a brief presentation and update just on La Plata Electric. Morning, Jessica.
Morning. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. So, I thank you for the Veterans Day. I was in the Coast Guard, but I feel a little bit in uniform because I'm all wearing blue, and I didn't realize that until you said that. So La Plata Electric, we have obviously a lot going on. Just listening to updates this morning, it sounds like I have a lot of work ahead of us as well with new development. But one exciting thing that's happened recently, I'm sure a lot of people have heard, we've been going through this buy down payment, buyout figures with Tri-State for over 2 years. So this all started before I came. So I'm a Colorado native, but I came to La Plata over 2 years ago. And the board had already decided that they wanted to look at options. And that was because there were other cooperatives in Colorado that were asking the same questions and asking for lower electric rates. And so at least 2 other co-ops, one in Colorado, one in New Mexico, were successful in negotiating a buyout number with Tri-State. And so they had done that probably 2 to 1 year ago on those 2 co-ops. So then my board said, well, let's look at the options. It's our responsibility to do that. So they asked myself and staff to look at 3 items. One was, could we work with the current contract, which is a 50-year contract? 2, could we go ahead and examine some kind of middle of the road option with Tri-State? And 3, what would it look like to fully buy out of Tri-State? So the board has not made a determination on any of those 3 items, but it's taken us over 2 years to really examine all 3 options. So the first option was, how do we change a 50-year contract? Well, we found out we couldn't. We were able to get a few items out of the contract. That means an additional 2% of a community solar project that was awarded to all co-ops within Tri-State service territory. So that was one benefit. But the other thing that we've been working with Tri-State on is lowering their rates. And Tri-State used to be regulated by a board of directors. And then they decided probably about 1.5 years ago that they wanted to become federally regulated. So instead of going to their own board like I do, they now have to go to the federal government to get acceptance on their rates. That's a little bit unfortunate. As you can imagine, it takes a lot of time and money to go to the federal government to ask for approval. So that required the co-ops to hire attorneys to now go to the federal government to put forward our issues, concerns, support even for Tri-State, instead of previously where we just go to their board. So I say all this because it's really complicated. It's become a lot more complicated. So we were able to go to FERC, that's the name of it, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and get a 2% rate reduction. And so that started this year. And if you recall, we passed on the savings from that 2% in capital credits back on your bill. So does anyone remember getting a refund basically this summer? Okay, hopefully you do. That was because of that 2% reduction. There's another 2% reduction happening next year. So you'll see more money coming back to the membership. So that was good, but we needed to still continue on the other 2 options. So I'll jump to the third option because that one is the one that's gotten a lot more press. And that was the full buyout. So we are in the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission with about 9 other co-ops, and that number is growing. asking for of just what would it be? What's the number? We just need to know. It's like anyone who wants to examine your cable bill or your phone bill, you want to look at other rates, right? So it's just curiosity too. What would it be? What would our buyout be? And then how much could we get power for on the open market with a different third party? So that's still in the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. It's been up and down and up and down. As of this past Friday, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, I'll call it FERC from now on, they said that they were done with examining Tri-State's proposal for the buy down payment, because for La Plata, it was about $600 million. And FERC ruled that that was unjust, unreasonable, and they did not agree. So they closed that case. And then they sent it to a new judge. So we're getting to know a lot of judges. And the new judge is just taken over as of last Friday. And she is now putting on a series of not court proceedings quite yet, but more try to settlement discussions between the parties. So we're starting all over again, which is good news though, because we can start with a different formula. So that's the good news, is that now all the parties are coming together to determine, okay, well, what is reasonable for a full buyout number? That's still probably going to take over a year to 2 years. We still have a long time on that. The better news is this middle of the road item. So when I started, it was really either a, can you change the contract, or you either stay with Tri-State fully, or is there a full buyout? Well, we started thinking, why is there not something in the middle? Why can't we come together and find a common ground? And I'm pretty proud of my staff because they worked really hard with Tri-State to come up with something. So we worked with a few other co-ops to come up with a partial contract. And that took a long time. So that means that Tri-State is opening the option where we can stay with Tri-State 50% of our power, and then we can go out and find somebody else to supply the other 50%. Most large-scale electric providers across the United States do that. This is common. So coming to Tri-State, it was really uncommon to have a 50-year fixed contract where you couldn't get out of it. So this was great news. So Tri-State called it an open season, and they released 300 megawatts of power. So to put it into context, La Plata Electric, we serve all of La Plata and all of Archuleta, and it's about 150 megawatts. So if you can imagine, 300 is a substantial amount. It's a good amount. Why this was a benefit for Tri-State is because they are finding that everybody's growing, and in the future, they're having to close their coal plants. I think most people know that. Gas plants are also kind of on the cusp. People are trying to close those as well. So they're going to have to build 300 megawatts of firm power. That means something that can be turned on and off quickly. Wind and solar are still intermittent. You cannot rely on those resources to back up your power. It is not reliable unless you have a backup. And that's typically battery, or if you have a multiple number of solar and wind geographically located within like 5 or 6 states, so that then you can pull from those different resources, but then you have to buy a substantial amount to do that. So Tri-State was kind of in a bind. And so they said, well, actually we said, why don't you let us fill that power that you need? It'll save Tri-State money because now they don't have to go out and build those big generators. And we said, we'd like to do that. Let us do that because we want to build it locally and we can do it, and we can do it cheaper. And they said, okay, let's go for it. So we just signed a memorandum of understanding a couple of weeks ago with Tri-State. Does not mean we're going down this path. It just means that Tri-State and La Plata Electric are in full agreement on what this arrangement looks like. So in addition to doing that with Tri-State, which was great, so we still have to buy out of our 50% power from Tri-State, but we negotiated a really good deal with them. And they're happy, we're happy. And so at the same time, we also went out and said, okay, so now we know that piece of the puzzle, but how much is it going to be to fill that amount that we actually need, 50% of our power? So we went out for requests for proposal. We sent it out to as many power providers that we knew. We worked with a consultant that's an expert in the country on this issue, and 9 groups came back with a solid proposal. So we worked with these consultants that this is their profession, is looking through power supply contracts for the United States, different entities. And we narrowed it down to 3 entities. Who attended our town hall meetings? I'm just curious, raise a hand. Not many, okay. I would encourage you all to go on our website. We reported those. If you want more information, we have a full presentation that you can look at as well. It gives all the details of what I just talked about. So if you want more details. We came down to 1 provider. They're called Crossover Energy. They've been around for a really long time. They are part of KKR, which is a big financial institution. I'm sure people have heard of them. One of the reasons we chose this group is because we went through a huge slate of, are they financially solid? Are they reliable? Do they have a lot of generation? What's their pricing? How is their community commitment to community? Because we didn't want to lose that. And they came out ahead. And so that doesn't mean we're going with them 100%, but it means that that's the group that we can now plug in all the numbers and the details in addition to the partial buyout with Tri-State and figure out what we're looking at. So what we've modeled, and we actually went with our CFC, which is our big bank. It's a co-op bank. They modeled the same numbers for us to double check everything. And we think that if we do this partial buy down with Tri-State and we go with this crossover contract, that we'll start saving day one, $7 million a year. Yeah, it's substantial. So if you think about it, $1 million equals a 1% rate increase. So with that $7 million savings per year on average, what do we do with the community, right? Well, we can't start thinking yet because none of this we've not signed contracts. The board has not determined this is the path, but you could lower rates. You can invest in more infrastructure. It sounds like we're gonna have to build more substations. Fire mitigation, that's a real concern, obviously. So we have huge opportunities in our community. And going with this crossover group allows us to build local generation here, but also they are going to build large scale solar in Southwest Colorado and designate it to La Plata Electric. So our carbon content will be cut more than in half. It'll be a dramatic reduction, huge. So we are really excited. This is monumental. We didn't think we could get here with Tri-State. They attended our town halls. They presented with us. We are now going to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission together to try to settle the case. But again, federal government is really difficult to figure out how much time and when we can actually settle. We're hoping to settle next year because what we'd like to do is finish up going to the board, getting approval. If we get approval from the board, then we would start taking power in 2024 and all these changes would start happening. So that is my update. But again, if anyone wants more details, please look at our website. We have the presentation. You can always call me. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the update, Jessica. A ton of information. We always love the credits back. You notice how like all of us raise our hands. Yeah, I remember that when that came. I remember the credit on my bill. We'll move into Sharon Clark with Frederick Zink and Associates.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me. Okay. Thanks for having me. This is my first meeting here. I know there's been some other folks from my firm that have been here, but I'm excited to be here. I'm a CPA here in town. I'm going to share a little bit with you about individual coverage health reimbursement accounts. And this type of plan is a great alternative for group health insurance offered by employers. And it's become even more appealing in the last couple of years. According to the IRS, the HRA rule will provide hundreds of thousands of businesses a better way to offer health insurance coverage and millions of workers and their families a better way to obtain coverage. It'll especially help small employers who face larger administrative costs from offering traditional group health plans compete for talent. from 2010 to 2008, the percentage of employers that offered group health plans declined drastically. And if you can see here on the slide, those top 3 bullet points indicate that the biggest decline was in those small to medium range businesses that have 49 or fewer employees. So the cost burden to provide health insurance was obviously too large for businesses to tolerate, and therefore individuals were left without insurance. So the way that this plan works is individuals obtain their own health insurance, and then employers can reimburse them for some or all of their costs. This plan evolved from the qualified small employer HRA, which had much less flexibility than this plan. That the first plan year that this was allowed to be used was 2020. So the amounts that are reimbursed to employees are deductible by the businesses, and the amounts that are reimbursed to the employee are not taxable income. So it's a win-win for both parties. The burden of finding the health insurance is obviously on the employee in this situation. So employees have to have qualified health insurance in order to participate in this plan. I'm going to use ICHRA as the abbreviation for this, but any businesses of any size can use this plan. Whereas the predecessor, it had to be used by businesses that had 50 or fewer employees. So again, another example of the increased flexibility with this plan. For those employees that use cafeteria plans, if they get a portion of their health insurance reimbursed by the HRA, they can pay the remaining portion with the cafeteria plan. So there's a big tax advantage there for the employee that can help with that, the big burden of health insurance costs. Here's just a few important dates that, as we're nearing the end of the year, open enrollment for the exchange began 11/1 and will end 1/15. If you want coverage by 1/1/22, you must be enrolled by 12/15. For ICHRA coverage to be effective 1/1/22, enrollment must be completed by 12/10. And there's some contact information there for a broker. Eligibility is up to the employer in this plan, which makes it really great. The allowance amounts are determined by the employer and can vary depending on different employment classes, as well as age and family size. So classes can include full-time, part-time, salaried, non-salaried, can be based on geographic location, seasonal employees, temporary employees, among others. And then employers can also combine 2 classes. There's no dollar cap, so employers can create that allowance amount. And like I said, that can be different for different classes of employees. The predecessor plan did have dollar caps. It was, I think, $5,300 for an individual plan and $10,700 for a family plan. So another example of increased individuals that have health insurance through the exchange can participate. However, they're not eligible for premium tax credits. Another thing that I don't see on this the slide is that employers can offer an ICHRA as well as a group plan, but you can't offer both to the same class of employees. So you could offer a group plan to like full-time employees and then ICHRA to seasonal employees, or however you want to work that out, but there can be overlap there. Another great thing about the ICHRA is that employees can make salary reduction contributions to the plan, although people that are on the exchange can't take advantage of this. And this was another thing that was not allowed within the qualified small employer HRA. Does anybody have any questions thus far? Okay, so that's really all I have on the ICRAs. I wanted to bring up the fact that last Friday, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. One of the two major priorities that Democrats have been focusing on. The other is the Build Back Better Act. I think that's the one that has people most concerned right now. And unfortunately, I don't have any answers about that. But I listed a couple of the revenue raisers to kind of fund the Infrastructure Act. Information reporting for digital assets. And this started to be looked at a little bit more heavily on the 2020 tax return. You're required to answer a question whether or not you have any cryptocurrency. And I think there's enough evidence that people are investing in this to the extent that they think they're going to raise $28 billion over 10 years to help fund this bill. And then also extending some Superfund excise taxes through 2031 to raise an additional $8 billion over that same time period. And hopefully, I mean, I'm as hopeful as everybody else that we'll get some more answers as far as the Build Back Better Act, because I think that's where we're going to see some changes in tax rates that are going to affect all of us. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Super. Next, we've got the CEO of Agile Space Industries, Jeff Max. Morning, Jeff.
Morning.
Hi, everybody. I have a short video which will explain what we're doing at Agile Space Industries. But at a high level, before we kick off,
I've got to make a share on this.
While Kiki's being made a share, what we do is we design, build, and test propulsion systems for lunar landers, for satellites, and for deep space probes here in Durango, which is pretty badass. Yeah. We use 3D printing of exotic metal and refractory alloys to actually build these propulsion systems, these rocket engines. We test them at a facility which is adjacent to the airport, where we simulate the temperature and the vacuum of space so that we're testing these devices in their actual operating environment. We currently are scheduled to fly on 3 lunar missions coming up in the next 2 years. Two of them actually going to the South Pole of the moon, looking for water ice. If we discover water ice there, that's the first sort of foundational block for building habitation on the moon. Maybe if we found water ice in Durango, we could find a place to house the people that we need to bring in. We're currently 40 people, up from 4 in the last 18 months. We have 35 job requisitions out right now. We expect to be at 75 by Valentine's Day, notwithstanding the fact that we can't find housing for anybody. We had one individual and his family moved from Houston and lived in a campground for 5 months before they could find a place to rent. That place to rent for the winter doesn't have heat. So I'm telling you, it's a problem. And our growth plan requires that we have 150 people by this time next year. If we don't solve the housing problem, it's not going to be in La Plata County. So with that, we can kick off.
We're delivering entire clean sheet designs from concept to first hot fire in under 6 weeks. Instant impulses above 330 seconds in some of our engines. We're delivering thrusters that are at less than half of the mass budget allowable for them.
And our superpower is the ability to tightly integrate our design, manufacture, and test capabilities. Where that takes us is into a realm where it's possible for us to design, manufacture, test, analyze, and iterate again in days, not weeks or months. And the yield is lower mass, higher performance, lower cost.
The design space that opens up an additive is literally orders of magnitude more than what's available with conventional machining. The overriding goal is propulsion efficiency.
We're working with powders as fine as 10 microns. What that gives us is the ability to create passageways, water flow channels, propellant flow channels, recirculation, regenerative cooling capabilities, and jackets that you simply couldn't do with other manufacturing techniques.
And a critical component of this is our A7 test stand. The test stand that we have here enables us to perform flight-like environments testing on integrated propulsion systems. So not just the thrusters, but also the tanks, valves, isolation systems, the entire stack of components that will be going on the spacecraft to be tested in a space-like environment here on Earth.
Capabilities of the test stand that really set it apart is our ability to do vacuum testing, to do incredibly fast data rates and incredibly precise data collection, and the ability to change the temperatures of the propellants that we're working with. The ability to measure the specific impulse of a thruster pulse, which is only 5 milliseconds long, is something that no other test stand has the capability to do.
Agile is enabling never before seen missions. Agile is producing thrusters that have impulse bits sufficient to do rendezvous and proximity operations on small satellites. Agile is producing thrusters with the performance to do repeated geostationary transfers and cislunar maneuvers. Agile is producing never before seen thrusters that can accommodate thermal environments that would previously have destroyed thrusters of a lesser make. Agile is a place where things that were previously only thought about are becoming real. And they're on the test stand every day, demonstrating the maturity and the readiness for flight.
Now, it extends to our qualification and production because of its accuracy.
Satellite internet.
So we can be in the development cycle and then move very quickly into qualifying.
Steve turned the internet off in time. So.
Well, rather than make you endure the buffering, I think you get the idea, right? It's a very exciting, very exciting opportunity that we have and what we're bringing to the community. You know, I've lived here for 25 years, and this organization is just incredible. We're attracting some of the brightest aerospace minds in the country, graduates from Purdue, from MIT, from USC, from Cal Poly. And they're moving here from jobs at SpaceX. They're moving to here from jobs at Blue Origin in Seattle. And they're moving here because of the extraordinary work that we're doing and really leading the industry. You see Lockheed Martin's name up there, one of our most exciting engines is one that we're doing for Lockheed Martin, in addition to the NASA work and work for other defense and other commercial space companies. Trying to do what we can to diversify the economy from tourism and some of our traditional industrial bases. These are high-paying jobs. I don't believe there's a job in the organization under $100,000. We pay 100% medical and other benefits for our employees. It's a terrific business. And again, and not to beat the drum that you've all been hearing and all know, we're going to hit a point here, if we're not already there, where we simply can't continue to expand in this community because there's no place for people to live. I recognize that that's a long fix. as a developer. I bought our headquarters building, the old wine shop at 1514 Main, redeveloped that as a local downtown headquarters for us. It takes a while, right? The permitting process, we need to expand our facility at our test facility at the airport 4 times. We were told that it's going to take not less than 9 months for our permit application to be reviewed. I got news for you. I have a bid on the table from the Midland, Texas Space Center saying that their permit lead time is 2 weeks. So, you know, I would encourage those in attendance and on the Zoom who have influence around helping businesses attract the kind of revenue, the kind of tax base, the kind of adjuncts to the community that we want to have to help companies like this, not just us, but other companies like this, move through the red tape, move through the processes as quickly as is legitimately possible so that we can be competitive with other states and other communities that are a little more nimble. So, but thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I got dibs on him if we ever have like Jeopardy or Trivial Pursuit. He's on my team. I appreciate y'all coming this morning. I think Mary Shepard with the SBDC had one other introduction that she wanted to make before we break. So I'll turn it over to Mary.
I just wanted to introduce my new business manager, Allison Danforth. She started with us last week, and she's replacing Hannah Berton, who left us all the way back to July. So as you can imagine, I'm super excited to have her. So she will be kind of taking on client management and business, kind of the business running the center. And I also wanted to take a minute to thank Kiki. Kiki was with us as the disaster relief coordinator through our CARES funding. She is transitioning out of SBDC because she is going to now be the full-time center coordinator here with Steve. And that's all I wanted to share. So thank you to Kiki for all the hard work.
Super. Anyone else have anything for the good of the cause? Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming this morning. I know we had daylight savings, so it was even a little bit earlier, but thanks so much.